Hi, this is Charlie Mato-Toyela with Blue Bear Flutes and BlueBearFlutes.com. BlueBearFlutes.com is a website where we actually sell our flutes that we make and have some instructional material and videos, two or three other things you might be interested in. Even some t-shirts from time to time that we have on there. But oftentimes I have people ask me in some of our videos, do you sell these? Do you know where I can buy these from? And I'm like, well, anyway. So I always try to say BlueBearFlutes.com in the middle and the beginning and end of the video. I try to do it as often as I can remember. But anyway, today's video is on making a Native American flute, kind of an old-fashioned way, something that you may not have thought about before, something that you may be interested in seeing, I'd like to say. But we're going to make a river cane flute, and we're going to use a couple of old-fashioned type drills to make this flute. I'm speaking, of course, of a bow drill and a pump drill. And those of you who have never seen a bow or pump drill before, this may be something very interesting to you. And while I'm putting them together so that you can see how bow drills and pump drills are made, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories that might be interesting as well. But first, before we get started, a word from our sponsor, BlueBearFlutes.com. Anyway, I'm wearing a glove on this hand because I wanted to show you something that I've never talked to you about before, not in great detail anyway, and that is the fibers that poke up from this river cane here. It is made to protect the river cane from a couple of predators, I presume. This stuff is on most different species of bamboo. Some of it has more, some has less, but Runda gigantea and this Textilis grassus here that I'm using today, it has a lot of these little spikes. I've taken some pictures so y'all can take a look at them, but if you want to look where we're at right there, I don't know if maybe you can see any of those little fibers. They're really vicious. I actually had one in my pinky finger a few minutes ago. Like I said, that's the reason I'm wearing this glove right now, because it learned me a lesson, to say the least. Anyway, if you ever mess with river cane, and I'm not telling you to go out and mess with river cane, but if you do, you may want to wear gloves. Back in the day when we made hundreds of thousands of river cane flutes, I used to wear some sleeve protection that were made to keep fiberglass from getting into your arms, and they're pretty good stuff. But for the first time in my life, in the 38 years I've been making flutes at this point in history, I actually got one of those in the bottom of my finger, and that was the weirdest sensation. I've never had that happen before. Usually they get me right under here and under there on my arms and your wrist, any of the soft, delicate tissue in your skin. That's where they like to hit you at. But it actually stabbed me in my finger. What do you do when that happens? Well, remember, if you ever are out messing with river cane, you've seen Charlie's video on how to make a river cane flute, and he told you grab some duct tape, slap it on there, and yank it off as fast as you can. It doesn't hurt to do that, but the reason you want to yank it off as fast as you can is because when you peel it off slowly, the skin kind of bends and moves around at the same time, and it may not peel that sticker out. So if you yank it off really fast, it'll take it out. We used to keep rolls of duct tape in our vehicle specifically for this because of how much river cane we went through, and we would be yanking it out left and right trying to do that. But anyway, so this is going to be our model, our flute. I'm going to mark it in just a minute, just with some random design for fingerings that you guys can check out other videos I have on making a flute in this key or that key. I don't have any particular key in mind. I'm just looking at the size of the flute and sizing it up for what size fingerings I'm going to put on it. And we're going to do all this with basically with an old-fashioned drill of some sort and a pocket knife. So if you want to take a look at what we're doing here, these are the parts that we'll use for building said drills. And let's see what we've got. A couple of little pieces. I'm going to explain to you what they are, where they come from, what they do, and how you come about them. So as you can tell, I've already used this a little bit, and I just wanted you to know that it's just a jumble of parts. There's nothing really to it. It's very simple. So let's do the bow drill first. It is the most effective and simultaneously probably the more difficult of the two. Not that either one of them are really difficult to use, but probably slightly more difficult than the pump drill is. What it consists of is a shaft, some type of bit. I used a piece of brass to shape into something I'm going to use for a bit. When you think about the bit, you need to think about the kind of hole you're going to drill, and this bit is going to need to be able to accommodate that particular hole. I've actually glued my bits in because for me it's easier to glue them in and take them out if I need to, rather than to lash them with something that may or may not hold. So we've got the shaft, and I'm going to push these other guys over here just a little bit. Then we have the hold block, which is this guy right here. You see I put some oil inside of it so that when I hold it on the top of this guy that it moves pretty freely and doesn't catch a fire, we hope. And then you have the bow, and the bow is just a bent piece of wood. There's a lot of ways to bend a piece of wood. You can do it with heat and steam. For me, the easiest thing to do is a fire, so even over a stove or an oven, well, not maybe in the oven, but anyway, you could stick it in the oven and heat it up. I've done that, but it's not as convenient. But even over an electric stove, you can hold this and get it kind of warm and bend it up. You don't need a huge arc in it. You just need a little bit of a bend. And this is actually a scrap piece of wood that I'm repurposing for this use. And then you need a piece of leather lace. There's a number of things you can use, but I can tell you the cord that we're going to use on the pump drill will not work as conveniently for the bow drill. I'm going to tell you why. But let's start off with, let's see, I'm trying to remember which side I want to stick in first. We're going to run this lace through a couple of holes that I have here. Whoops, I'm putting the thing on backwards. I knew I was going to do that. So you want to put a hole inside of your bow on each end, and grab your leather. I'm kind of particular about which direction I like my leather to face. Your first couple of times, none of this is going to matter. Just do your best. You'll learn what your struggles are when the time comes. And you want it to be not like taut, like you're actually going to launch the shaft out of it. Not anything like that. I like to keep it a little bit loose. Not too loose, but just loose enough. And I'm going to tie a knot in it up here as well. And this knot doesn't have to be super tight. Okay, so to use this guy, what you do is you kind of put your shaft down in there, and then you've got, I'm just going to use this as an example, you've got a block of wood that you're, say, going to put a hole in, and then you hold this hold block up at the top. I'm going to clamp this guy in a minute, but anyway, the idea is you go back and forth. I could actually drill a hole in my, maybe this is small enough. There we go. I'm just going to be real gentle here until I get this guy clamped down. Okay, I'm going to clamp it now. Anyway, I was hoping this was going to be the surprise part of the video. You're like, hey, what's this guy doing? Anyway, let's go ahead and clamp this down. I was telling my wife before we started this video, how do you want to do this? Do you want to do this on the ground? Do you want to do it on the table saw, which is usually where I like to do a lot of my projects? She said, well, we probably ought to do it on a table of some sort or another. But historically, people would sit down and hold their piece of work, like this block of wood here, between their feet and kind of squat. And then this is the process of your hole. And you can go faster and slower. You'll find as you practice that there's a certain amount of tension that you want to keep on this, and there's a certain amount of tension you want to keep on this. You notice I'm holding this guy right here, and my twist is actually holding the shaft here in place. I'm only pushing down gently. It's more of a guide than actual brute force. Now, a bigger bow drill, you may be using more brute force, and as you progress in your hole that you're drilling, you can actually feel that you can push down further. You get to the point where you realize how much you can push to go at the same time as not stopping yourself from spinning. And you'll also notice the top of this guy gets a little bit warm. So that's what the hole looks like here. I'll hold it up for you so you can see. That's a nice, fairly tapered, good-looking little hole that we started. We could continue on with it if we wanted to, not completely necessary in this case. I am going to turn it around. This hold block here, I'm going to explain it a little more in a second as we continue on. I just wanted to give you a little introduction to what a bow and a pump drill are before we started making this flute. Anyway, that's basically how you use a bow drill. It comes in about 3 pieces. It's not easy to use it without the hold block. You know, you can, but your hand's going to get really messed up after a while. So you really do need the hold block. And historically, there again, this guy began the whole process. We used to use pieces of reed or river cane like this, and we would drill holes like this all day long. As a matter of fact, a Creek Indian friend of mine had told me that before we even used a bit in our drills, we just had a small shaft of reed, and you would fill it with mud or with sand, really wet sand, and you would turn it onto your piece of wood or stone or whatever it is that you're drilling. And as you do this right here, of course, some of the reed is going to wear away as it's drilling through the wood or stone, but because the sand is there, and as the sand comes out, it acts as a very fine little sandpaper, and it'll cut out a beautiful little plug. It was really handy for making earbobs or anything like that, or beads out of different materials. But that was all done by hand like this back in the old days. So this is the next evolutionary step. And eventually, when we had a whole lot more time on our hands, you know, we found out a quicker and easier way, which in some cases is better, in some cases it's not. But I'm going to show you basically the parts that you need to make a pump drill. There again, you have a shaft. The shaft, you'll notice, is a little bit longer than the one over here. It could have been a lot longer, really, if I wanted it to. I'll show you what the length does to the shaft on, or to the usability of the shaft on the pump drill in just a second. But you need a balance, and a lot of times the balances are made out of stone, made out of you know, something that's like a calcium-rich stone is usually pretty easy to carve, and then they would drill the hole. The old people used to drill the hole down in it with that piece of river cane like we're speaking of, and eventually you would get the right size shaft. There we go. It's kind of tight, but it's loose. I like to be able to move my balance up and down in the shaft, and we're probably going to wind up using it down here a little bit. It affects the way that it's usable a little bit, but the most important reason that you need a longer shaft is to accommodate the handle portion of this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread it in here. Not everybody would do it like this. A lot of times you would have just a notch in the top of it up here, just like an arrow. I mean, it was a broken piece of an arrow anyway in most cases. But I'm doing it this way because I have made enough of these to know what what works best. And if you see what I've done, I mean, it looks like a child's toy. You guys may have seen in a book somewhere, or any of you old enough to have ever played with one of these. Most cultures around the world, I believe, had these, and that's, of course, just a hypothesis. I should say many cultures had these. But this is the reason having a longer shaft comes in handy, is because you can actually use a longer piece of string, which gives you a much longer amount that you can push down. So I'm trying to start it on that dot that I started already. Anyway, if you had a long distance that you could travel this guy, then you would be able to make one stroke and it go way down. And of course, the longer the shaft, the easier it is to keep it in motion. Of course, the balance here, the counterbalance, it helps to have a slightly larger one, but it's harder to get them to go fast, to start them going fast. They do keep going better than the smaller ones do. So that's why probably a stone would be even better than this wood one, but this is how we're going to do it here. See if I can start it. Oop. Having your bit a good shape and size really comes in handy when getting it started like this. And sometimes you have to cheat and start it with something else. So I'm just going to back and forth a little knife hole right there, and sometimes you'll get out of sync with your pumping action and you'll go down when it needs you to come back up, so that's what happens there. But one of the major differences between using this pump drill and a bow drill is that the pump drill makes a very nice round hole. You'll see that when we start doing this in the river cane. Okay, that's probably enough of that. And you'll notice this is the hole that I did with the bow drill, and this is the hole with the pump drill just now. In about the same amount of time, I did a lot larger hole here because I could use more force, whereas this guy here is, there's a certain amount of force. Your downward force actually is where most of it comes from, and then you need, when you come back up, you need to let it recoil itself. So that's how that goes. You probably can't see it here so well. Like I say, we'll be able to tell in the river cane because of the type of material it is. But the bow drill does a little bit more of a wobbly hole depending on your bit. And that's something else I should probably mention, is that historically the bits would have been one of two or three things. Whatever it is the hardest, sharpest thing that we have, which would have been obsidian in some areas, some you know, if somebody was making a flint arrowhead, they would have made a flint bit, and flint bits are really hard to find. They're not something that you see laying around everywhere. People were very proud of their bits, and they took good care of them. So it might have been buried with somebody, and you know, that's the reason you don't find those laying on the surface on the ground somewhere. But whereas arrowheads, you'll find those a lot of times in areas where people either sat and made arrowheads, or where there was a battle, or maybe there was a favorite hunting ground, or maybe where they threw their scraps, or if it was a ceremonial area, place that these arrowheads were kept, spear points and what have you, sometimes in a ceremonial area. But like I say, drill bits out of stone and out of obsidian and gator gar scales and 2 or 3 other things like that that are sharp and a good, you know, symmetrical design. They're hard to find. They really are. It's not something that you're going to see laying around everywhere. But anyway, so the bit, like I say, I made mine out of brass. You could use a drill bit. You could use a piece of a broken screwdriver or any kind of material that you have. You can actually use this without a bit. And something my wife and I were talking before the video was about how our kids used to play with these. And if you ever make these and little children get to play with them, they're going to love it. But I'm going to tell you, they're going to burn a hole into everything they get in contact with. We would find holes in the carpet and we'd be like, "Hey kids, who did this?" And they're like, "I was using the pump drill." That can happen. As a matter of fact, it leads to another purpose of, say, the bow drill here, for example. Usually a bow drill without a bit in it was used to start fires, and you would just, you can tell how the top of it up here, even though it's oiled and slick, has gotten pretty hot inside of my hold there, but they would use this to start fires, and it works very well for starting fires, as a matter of fact. Good Boy Scout technique. But anyway, that's a brief little introduction into these two kinds of drills. I'm going to go ahead and mark this flute so we can get it started. And I'm going to have to use that knife in just a second. Let's see. Just going to start marking here based on what I feel like where these holes ought to be. Like I say, this just not wanting to make anything in particular today in a certain key or anything of the sort, so that's where I'm going to cut it off at. If you want to see anything about videos of flutes being made in particular keys, I've got so many videos on that. That's the reason I didn't want to bother with it on this particular case. I'm going to block this guy down, hold it in place, and y'all will get to watch me drill until I can't stand it. I mean, really. And I'm also going to show you what this block here is done for. Its purpose is actually to help you get your start on your round material specifically. This isn't something you're going to find a whole lot of historically. They're something that have only happened in certain periods in time, and gosh, you know, it really comes with the territory. I mean, how many flute makers do you think ever really existed before Columbus landed? A lot of you probably think millions, but it might have been 10 or 20, I'm guessing, just in the year he landed. But see what I can do here. I think I'm going to go ahead and start this hole in my knife first to make it a little bit easier on me. And then I'll go back and forth using different drills for the sake of making the hole nice and round, or making it quicker and larger. That's not the way that people would have done it in the history either. They would have used one drill and stuck with it. And most of the time would have been this bow drill. A lot older design, more reliable, and definitely pretty handy. Oops, there we go. Also, there again, when people did this back in the old days, they would have held this here with their feet, or someone else would have held it if in Central America, where people did much more elaborate drillings, that kind of thing was going on. But this is the purpose of this block here, just to let you know. Like I say, something that you would put your feet down on and hold your work in place, and it would help guide your bit. So since I've already started my hole, I don't have to do that. But like I said, did want to show you what this all boils down to. Okay, now bit's getting stuck. That's okay. Okay, here's one hole. Let's see what the pump drill is going to do for it right now, because if you can tell, it's not pretty and it is a little bit lopsided. Now this guy, in some materials, drills really quick. Once you get to a certain point in the drill, however, you can't back and forth like I showed you a moment ago. See, not as much force with this guy, and certainly you could use the hold block to hold and put some more pressure on it, but it's going to slow you down, and it's not going to have the pumping action as well. Slow. When you get to a certain point, though, like I say, you can only make one spin, but it does make the holes very, very round, which is pleasant. So if y'all want to watch me do the rest of this with old Trusty, Okay. Okay, I bet you didn't believe I could use one of those that quickly. But anyway, it was actually so little that we needed a time lapse just to keep you from having to watch all that because it's kind of boring. It takes a while. But it actually went pretty quick, you know. I'm going to tell you my own take on things. Because most flute makers in the United States area didn't make bunches of flutes. Some of them, maybe. Just really not a lot of people made a lot of flutes up here. Now in Bolivia and Peru and Ecuador, Brazil, there were probably areas where you would go and there were a lot of people making flutes. And I think this is the reason people got the notion, those of you who have already yelled it out, the broken flute cave. Oh, hey, kitty. Oh, I gotta pick my kitty up. She's a mess. My sweet kitty. You kill any rattlesnakes today? She always comes to see me when I'm making a video, it seems. But anyway, people in Bolivia and Peru and Brazil, Ecuador, places like that that made just endless amounts of flutes, or so it seems. The people there probably used bow drills and pump drills more often, but I believe people that were going to make maybe one of these in their entire life used a stone knife and probably whatever they had laying around. I do have a video where I made some tools with my knife, and I used those tools to help clean the holes up a little bit. But basically that's, I think, the way that most people would have done it, because unless you're making a lot of one thing or something similar to this and you just happen to have a bow drill or pump drill laying around, it's going to have been a lot easier to do it this way. I'm going to have to sit you down, sweetie. Okay. Have my cat plug for the day in our video. So a lot of people would have just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth like this, and that's how the holes would have been started and cleaned up. And it's, you know, I'm actually not just doing this for demonstration right now, I'm actually helping clean the holes up, because myself, even though the pump drill and bow drill are a lot of fun to use and they make an excellent demonstration, beautiful piece of technology, very interesting, I personally like to use this method right here. I've been doing it since I was 3 years old and had my first pocket knife. Okay, maybe I was 5, but I think I was probably closer to 4. Drilling holes and things with that pocket knife was just instinctive when I was a little guy. So that's how a lot of people in the United States region would have probably done this. Now there again, people out in Mesa Verde maybe had a bow drill or pump drill, I'm not sure. It would be interesting if you did know and you could make a comment about that. I know there's a couple of Navajos that watch our videos. Y'all let me know, or anybody out that way that knows anything about old school bow drill and pump drill use in the area, or maybe knows something about the Papago people that made so many of those just hollow tube flutes. A beautiful flute, which I think I've made a video on. I'm going to make another one day. Next part of flute making. So some of you may be watching me for the first time, and for that reason I'm going to show you what I'm doing here so that you can get kind of an idea about how you can do this with a pocket knife. Any of you that are watching my videos and haven't seen me do this with a pocket knife, well, here you go. I told my wife I didn't want to time-lapse this part of the video because so many people are going to be seeing this for the first time and ask me this question, how did you do that? So what I'm doing right now is a lot easier with a small handsaw if you can, but if all you had was a pocket knife, I've already shown you how you could drill these holes with a pocket knife, and a stone knife would have took care of this for me. But I always strap this one to my side. And here we are. Okay. I think because I'm less likely to cut myself with this. Okay. So there again, if I had like a small handsaw, this would have been quicker and maybe a little neater in some ways, just to cut those lines. Okay. Now I'm going to flake it off. Now I'm going to brag about flaking it off and not flake it off. Oh. Flake piece of it off. You don't know why I cut those grooves. When you're flaking wood like this, it's a lot easier. Those of you at home who are afraid of knives, or if you live in a country that doesn't allow you to have knives and weapons and such, don't try this at home. If you are afraid for my fingers right now, please don't try doing this. If you comment in the comment section, you were so worried I was going to cut myself, please don't ever try this. You may not ever need to do this in your life. One of my daughter's friends was talking to us about what if there was a zombie apocalypse, or what if there was something like a Quiet Place type apocalypse, what would happen? And she said, I'd be the first to go. Oh my goodness. Just hope you're the first to go and that you don't ever have to learn how to do this. Okay, that's actually pretty nice. Just making sure it's kind of flat now. Let's see. It didn't look bad, not honestly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use the pump, or rather the bow drill, I think, to start my holes here. It might even be quicker than using my knife. And I'll let you watch that. There we go. Let's see, give them a little start. Yeah, any of you that are worried about me cutting myself, this is a burn, not a cut. Any of you worried about me cutting myself with this knife have never touched a stone knife in your life. That's what you should worry about being cut with. Okay. Pretty good. And for those of you who don't know what I'm doing right now, or why I'm drilling two holes up here, I'm going to explain it to you in just a second. Okay, that's a good start anyway. So, let me go ahead and unclamp this, I think. With this particular type of Native American flute, you have a flute body, which is from here down. It's where the sound actually happens. Up here at the top, it vibrates, and the vibrations travel down the flute, and they escape. Some of the air pressure escapes out of these fingerings, and that's what makes the tones. There is a partition right here, however, a natural one that happens inside of the river cane, or bamboo, or any type of natural material like this that we make flutes out of. Typically has some kind of partition or something that you can make a partition out of, and In the case of other flutes, like wooden flutes, we find another way to make that partition in there, but there has to be separation between this air and this air. And this is the air supply hole. Little trivia: every time I'm voice dictating to a customer who is trying to make a flute or trying to learn how to do something, and I use the word air supply hole, it always capitalizes it. Isn't that funny? Whenever I'm using Google Voice to dictate an email. Okay, I'm getting a start there. And then this is the sound hole. And the sound hole, of course, is where the sound is made and kind of comes from and what have you. Oftentimes it's made with a better knife than this large one here, maybe with a small X-Acto knife, but I'm going to see how much of it I can do right here. I think I can do most of it. Now if you just want to learn how to make a flute and you don't want to struggle so much, I've got videos on making flutes with drills and CNC machines and routers and all kinds of crazy stuff. Burning tools are my weapon of choice. I just kind of slowly whittled a little slant there. And I'm going to clean this hole up a lot. I prefer the sound hole to be square. It seems to produce the best tone. So that's where I'm going to be headed here. I'm going to blow through this top one. Let's see. I think I have a piece of tape stuck on this knife. Okay. Let's see. Making the square hole might seem a little difficult. Like I say, it's part of the task. If you don't make a nice clean edge for this sound hole, you're not going to produce much of any tone. Okay, getting so close here on that portion of it. The hard part is going to be getting this edge the way I like it. I tell you what I might do is finish this flute up so that y'all can see what it sounds like, and then show you a couple of quick adjustments that you can do with, say, a smaller knife or a file or something to see where it'll take you. So oftentimes I have customers that message me or call me or whatever, and they're like, I can't get it to sound right. As a matter of fact, I responded to one of those emails just before we started making this video. They're like, I can't get it to sound right. It won't make a sound or what have you. And I'm like, well, send me a picture of the sound hole and I'll tell you what's wrong with it. Because that is definitely where most people's problems lie. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is similar to what we did about etching that line. Okay. We're going to do just a little bit of flaking, but very carefully, because this is actually the delicate part of the flute, the part that you've really got to get right. I'm going to spin it around here in just a second so I can whittle on this other side. That line that I etched in there helps to guide me as I go. Now, any of you that have watched my videos, or for example maybe have bought my flute kit, I actually show how to do this on the flute kit making video, how to put your flute kit together. I show you how to do this with a piece of sandpaper, so it's actually much easier with that piece of sandpaper than it is what I'm doing right here, right now. And not very happy with the edge of this sound hole, but like I say, I'm going to go back and clean it up. As soon as I get to show you what it's going to sound like, then I'll show you where you can take it, there again, without any massive amount of tools. All this I could have done with this pocket knife. One thing that you really want to do is make sure that your track is nice and level all the way across. So I'm trying to scrape it right here and make it nice and level. Many of you are clenching your teeth right now, hoping that I don't cut myself, but the likeliness of me cutting myself, and I'm not bragging, I'm not even allowing the knife to travel anywhere further than where I want it to. That's a terrible looking track. I have had people email worse looking ones and say, why doesn't my flute play? And I'm like, because you haven't finished making it yet. I'm making kind of a slant here to hopefully provide a little more air travel. I'm going to go ahead and clean this up right here. And then we need to make a block. So the block, easy part. I've done this on so many videos. Yoink. That's how we used to make so many flute blocks back in the day. And you see there's a little bit of a track there already. We could leave that and see what happens. Problem is, it's just a pinch too long. So rather than take it over to my saw, which would have been the quicker thing to do, I'm going to let y'all see me whittle it down with my knife. Oh no, you're going to cut your finger. The knife is going away from my hand. Oh my goodness. And any of you that don't know what I'm talking about, I've had a couple of videos where I've used pocket knives before. I'm like, have you seen the tools in my shop? You know, I've actually cut a finger off with a table saw once. I've been attacked by drills, and I think I've been hit by the router once. The worst thing that's ever happened to me, I think the worst that I've ever bled, other than, I cut the tip of my finger off that we went to the hospital for. The worst thing that ever happened to me happened with a drill bit. My arm scraped across the drill bit, and oh my gosh, that was a mess. But this right here, look, actually I'm stopping the knife before it even touches my finger with any level of force whatsoever. This is called knowing your tool. So effectively just shorten this block a little bit. Not nearly enough. Okay. I'm not going to wimp out. I'm not going to use a sander that is just 5 feet behind me. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to continue using this with my knife, because if I don't, somebody's going to say, you didn't just use primitive tools. There is another technique I could do too to do this. Instead of shortening the block, I could actually cheat and make this guy here a little bit longer, because this is much quicker. Yoink. Okay. Just enough that we can see if this thing makes any sound other than the sound of wind rushing by. Let's see what happens. I've had people send me pictures of flute tracks that look like that. Oh my gosh. Okay, it makes an airy tone. Let's see. So close. I'm going to go grab that knife real quick, because I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little tiny piece of what I have always called since childhood Punjab sticking up inside of that hole. So I'm going to grab that. Just a ratty old X-Acto knife that's been used for so many things other than X-Actoing. Is it pronounced X-Acto or Zacto? I don't know. Okay. Cleaning this hole up. Now this little blade here, I would worry more about cutting me than my knife. Not because my knife isn't sharp. Let me hold it right here. But because this little blade cuts faster and is less predictable. Oh no, you're going to stab yourself in the Tupac. No, I'm not. Okay. This is the benefit of having this slender, sharp little blade. Go ahead and clean this hole up too. Get some more airflow going. Hey, I said Tupac. I don't know if any of you noticed I'm wearing a Tupac shirt, but does anybody know where his name comes from? If you do, leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear if any of you know anything about Tupac and why that's his name. Okay. I think we're actually looking fairly okay there. Much better. It's nice to be able to get the blade all the way down inside of there. Now of course, there again, the step up from this blade here is my burning tools. If I wanted to take it over there and burn the track and the sound hole in, this thing would really make a beautiful sound. But we're sticking with archaic tools today. Let's see, clean this track up just a smidgen. I don't think my little blade will do that. Nope. Really, I'm going to have to scrape it some more because I can't get it at the angle I need it to be. It's looking better. Let's see what that sounds like. And keeping in mind we have a fat track there because we have it in the flute and on the block. It sounds like a flute made with archaic tools. Let's try one more thing here, just as a test and see what happens. Let's try a flat block. Let's see if that makes any difference. See if there's enough airflow. No, not quite enough airflow. That's because my track is rather imperfect. Now, if I was near some sandstone, I would definitely consider finding me a little sandstone pebble to do some of this. Yeah, if you've sent me an email with a picture of a track that looks like this, I am definitely sorry. My response should have been, do you have any sandpaper? Because that would square this track up in 2 minutes flat. And there are a lot softer materials than this cane here. This stuff is notoriously hard to begin with, but it does like to make some straight lines when you're flaking. Let's see what happens. Well, it is a little hairy right there. I think that's got it. Okay, let's try it again. If this doesn't work, I'm going to put the block back on it with the track in it, and we'll go from there. Yep, except for the intonation, that's not too bad. Definitely on its way. Let's see what this other one sounds like on it. We'll call that better for now. I'm going to grab a squeezy clamp to hold this in place so we can tune it real quick, and that should just take a second. Any of you who are new to my channel, I love squeezy clamps. Okay. I've also seen fingerings that look like this. People have emailed me, my flute doesn't sound very good. I made it out of this, that, or the other. Broom handle and 2 pipe cleaners. And it just sounds like garbage. What can I do? Send me a picture of it. When I see it, I'll be able to tell you. The problem is the top pipe cleaner is too big. I'm just kidding. I have seen, I'm not lying about the description, but I didn't respond to them like that. Okay, getting close, just making these holes a little bit more open. Okay. at any point, if I went back and used my burning tools like I do on lots of other videos, it would clean this up in a flash. Oh my goodness. You know what, I'm going to mention something here. Hopefully it won't get me banned from YouTube, but just throwing that out there. I made a video a couple of years ago in this very shop where I made a flute blindfolded. Now, my disclaimer on mentioning that video: don't anybody in any frame of mind, right or otherwise, or my 6 customers that are in various institutions, don't any of you ever try to use power tools blindfolded. That is nuts. It is crazy. You are talking to pure Native American circus folk here, and only I can make things like that blindfolded. That was nuts. But in case you want to watch me do it, I'll include a link to that video in the description of this one. It was a very neat video. Had hardly any views on it. I might have seen 1 or 2 people ever commented on it ever. And it just, I think it just misses the algorithm is what it is. Possibly because I'm doing something stupid and blindfolded, but I use a number of tools, drills, burning tools. My wife wouldn't let me use the bandsaw. She figured it'd cut my fingers off too quickly. If a drill cut me, it would probably take a little bit longer, and maybe I'd get smart and take the blindfold off. But I didn't. But I did use a lot of burning tools, blindfolded. Any of you that have ever watched my videos ever, and you want to see me do any of that blindfolded, this is a video I'm talking about for you. Okay, let's try this, and I'm going to be happy with it one way or the other. How about that? It's actually a pretty fair sound. These holes are going to have to be a lot bigger in order for it to be in tune. But, like I said, proof and concept here, something I wanted to show you. I can tune this guy up and make it play really, really beautifully. But wanted to show you that you can drill holes out using a pump drill, a bow drill, your knife. A number of different tools of choice. So many different ways to do this. Especially if you're patient. Oh my gosh, people that are patient usually don't cut themselves with their pocket knife. Did I just say that? I think I did. It's like my kitty is hunting for snakes again. Okay. I know some of you are at home. He's going to cut himself. I just know it. I can't watch. Just wait until my Halloween flute comes out. You guys will definitely enjoy that video. Okay, let's see if this help matters any. I'm going to cover the bottom hole a little bit, see what happens. Sounds pretty good. When I'm covering the bottom hole there, restricting the airflow, I'm actually making the bottom note, that is all holes covered, lower and flatter. And the lower and flatter tells me that without the bottom covered and it's being sharper, if these sounded out of tune and they sound flat, which they do, then I need to make the holes bigger. So nothing to it. I'll probably go ahead and do that and post a little video of me playing at the end of it after tuning it a little bit. I have videos on tuning flutes, so like I say, something that all of you could definitely find. And if you have any questions, as always, please let me know. I believe it's been some time, but back in the day, a user asked me to make a video making a flute with a pump drill or bow drill. And my wife's been thinking we should do this forever, and every time the kids pick up one of the bow drills or pump drills, or we're at an event somewhere where we're letting them play with them, we've always thought about it would be cool to make a video showing how to use a pump drill or a bow drill. So there you have it. You know, simplicity incarnate, and very easy to do, something that anybody can make. I mean, you've seen all the parts of this guy. This is like a 3/8 inch diameter dowel. I made this balance with a hole saw, something that I had left over from a project before. And then this was a brass screw that I just ground down. You don't have to use brass. Like I said, there's so many other things you can do. This guy, leather that we have laying around the shop, and then a couple of other pieces. You can actually use your drill to start this hole here, or use your knife to do it, and then that'll be how you hold it down. So there's so many things you can do. This was never made with massive tools historically, or even today. So I think the most complex tool I used on it was that hole saw. Anyway, I hope this video has helped you, inspired you, given you something to think about. And yes, we do sell Native American flutes at bluebearflutes.com. Yes, that's bluebearflutes.com. Anyway, if you are interested in making Native American flutes or seeing how to play them, we have so many videos on that here on YouTube. We do have an excellent Instagram and TikTok. That was Miss Snake Killer Kitty that just bumped the tripod. Oh, hey, she wants to come up and be in the show again. Anyway, so please check all of those out. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. I do reply to 99% of those. And certainly they do spawn new videos that we make as well. But I hope that you all are safe and careful in your process of making Native American flutes or playing them. Once again, hope to see you again very soon. You guys take care. This is Charlie Mato-Toyela signing out for Blue Bear Flutes and bluebearflutes.com. Happy flute playing and happy flute making. Goodbye for now.